Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Vors. Another hour of Newsroom LA begins now. Donald Trump appears to be on his way to becoming the U.S. Republican presidential nominee, but he needs to win more than half the remaining delegates to clinch the nomination before the party's convention this July. That's not impossible, but Trump has a dire prediction about what could happen if he doesn't get his way. CNN's Phil Mattingly has the details.
Tonight, Donald Trump is calling for the Republican Party to coalesce behind him, even as his path to the nomination remains complicated.
The fact is, we have to bring our party together. We have to bring it together. We have something happening that actually makes the Republican Party probably the biggest political story anywhere in the world.
The GOP frontrunner issuing a stark warning if he keeps his sizable delegate lead and Republican leaders turn to a different nominee.
If we're, 100 short, and we're at 1,100 and somebody else is at 500 or 400 because we're way ahead of everybody, I don't think you can say that we don't get it automatically. I think you'd have riots.
Just days after his rivals criticized him for encouraging violence at his rallies. After another huge Super Tuesday showing, notching wins in 3 states, Trump pledged today to skip the next scheduled GOP debate Monday night.
How many times can the same people ask you the same question? So I was very surprised when I heard that Fox called for a debate. Nobody told me about it, and I won't be there, no.
With John Kasich balking at a Trumpless event, Fox News eventually pulled the plug. Trump's dominant victory in Florida was the final, crushing blow to Marco Rubio's once promising campaign.
The fact that I've even come this far is evidence of how special America truly is.
The Florida senator leaving the race with a clear message for Republican voters.
America needs a vibrant conservative movement, but one that's built on principles and on ideas, not on fear, not on anger, not on preying on people's frustrations.
Trump's only setback Tuesday night coming in Ohio, where home state Governor Kasich picked up a convincing win, his first of the campaign.
We are going to go all the way to Cleveland and secure the Republican nomination.
Kasich hitting the trail today in Pennsylvania.
For the first time, people are actually beginning to see my name, my face, and hear my message.
Ted Cruz pulling in more delegates and holding on to a clear second-place position, dismissing Kasich's claim that the GOP fight is still a 3-man race.
Only 2 campaigns have a plausible path to the nomination, ours and Donald Trump's. Nobody else has any mathematical possibility whatsoever.
And pitching a renewed push for party leaders to unite behind his campaign and take out Trump.
We're seeing Republicans unite behind our campaign because we're the only campaign that is beating Donald Trump over and over and over again, and we're the only campaign that can and will beat Donald Trump.
For all the attention and money that have flowed the way of the Stop Trump movement up to this point, Donald Trump still holds a clear upper hand. Ted Cruz and John Kasich both needing something to change drastically in the weeks ahead to really have an opportunity to catch up to Trump's delegate lead. What a lot of Republican operatives are pointing to across the spectrum, a contested convention. Now, Donald Trump has warned of what could happen if we end up at that point. John Kasich has said flatly that's his primary goal. Ted Cruz not quite there yet, but there is no question about it. To stop Donald Trump, something big needs to happen, and that might mean on the convention floor in Cleveland. Phil Mattingly, CNN, Villanova, Pennsylvania.
Well, for more, I'm joined now by Democratic strategist Dave Jacobson, Republican consultant John Thomas. Thanks, guys, coming back. Okay, is this comment about the potential for riots coming from Donald Trump? Is that kind of the equivalent of it? Hey GOP, that's a nice convention you got going over there. Be a shame if it got all bagged up. Shame if something happened to it.
Is that a threat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Donald Trump's way of asserting control, and he's just letting the establishment know this is my show. I'm in control of what happens, and so you better not try to pull a fast one on me, because let's not forget, I've got a mob of supporters.
I also think it's a preview. We're getting somewhat of a glimpse of what kind of president he's going to be. This is a guy where if he doesn't get his way, he's going to create a war zone and send his troops in. And I think that speaks to his judgment and his temperament. And that's not really what you want from a presidential candidate.
But his supporters do. They love this sort of stuff. It shows he's being strong, he's in charge, he's standing up to the establishment.
Right,
this is why they like him.
And that's largely an overreaction of President Obama, who they consider to be weak and spineless. And so they're looking for a strong leader, and Trump, it does project strength.
Dave, you'd agree that Obama created Donald Trump, right?
Hardly. I mean, well, you know, I think obviously Donald Trump created the birther movement, and that sort of inspired this anti-establishment, anti-Obama movement that he sort of tapped into. And I think, look, there's no doubt that there's tremendous anxiety and anger out there, and I think it all stems from the fact that there's so much gridlock in Washington. Yeah. That's essentially what gave birth to Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump.
Well, you also see typically when it's an open seat for president, it's an overreaction to the current, the outgoing president. Look, George W. Bush largely gave an opportunity for Barack Obama to rise on hope and change, and now we've got you know, what Republicans think is a weak leader, and they want somebody who's strong.
Okay, now there's always protesters at political conventions, but just as an indication of how things have changed. You know, back in 2012, outside the Republican convention in Tampa, there was about 1,000 protesters who turned up. There was minimal security. This year, the city of Cleveland is putting out for bids 2,000 sets of riot gear, including 200 riot control suits. They want batons. Reportedly recruiting for an extra 3,000 extra police. So clearly, officials there in Cleveland are now genuinely worried about what could happen come the convention.
And they should be. I mean, the fact is, you know, Bernie Sanders supporters are not going to have much to do, so they might as well go be disruptive.
I mean, do you really think that Bernie Sanders supporters are... I mean, it won't be orchestrated by the campaign, but you think that they will turn?
Well, at the Chicago rally, they were Bernie Sanders.
They were Bernie Sanders, but I guess the allegation is, did the campaign send them there? You don't believe that, do you?
No, I don't believe that. I think MoveOn.org sent them there. And look, it was smart of the protesters if they wanted to generate headlines, but also, let's be honest, the Trump campaign went into a city that hasn't elected a Republican mayor in a long time. Yeah. They knew it was going to generate headlines.
Do you think that's exactly what they were trying to do? Is that why he called it off, even though the police sort of said, you know, we didn't say call it off in Chicago?
Look, there's no doubt that Donald Trump is inciting and inspiring violence all across this country. He's genuinely tapped into a nerve, and people are angry and frustrated, but I think he's taking it to the extreme, and I think it's doing severe damage to, you know, the dialogue and the discourse for this presidential campaign.
Yeah, if he doesn't become the uniter that he says he's going to become, I think America's in serious trouble.
Trump skipping the next debate. Clearly, he now believes that he's in this incredibly strong position, and that he's, if not saying the presumptive nominee, he believes he is.
Well, and let's face what would happen if he showed up at the debate. Ted Cruz is going to go at him again and again and again, and Kasich is going to try to play above it all, right? And so Donald Trump says, I'm not going to subject myself to that. Kasich says, I'm out, because if it's just Kasich and Cruz is going to light up Kasich.
Right, and no one's going to watch. I mean, look, I think
that's how the debate started.
That's largely a function of ratings at this point.
Yeah. Okay, stay with us, because we now have a report from Brianna Keilar. She's covering the Hillary Clinton campaign, and Secretary Clinton really now setting her sights on Donald Trump.
Hillary Clinton fresh off a sweep last night.
This is another Super Tuesday for our campaign.
The Democratic frontrunner bringing home victories in 4 states, adding